Did anyone go down to testify today?
No.
So, no.
Michelle did.
Nice. I wish I could have. I'm gonna have to submit something in writing, but and let me.
Oh, there you are.
There I am.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
If people don't want to bother to write themselves, I think at least a couple of organizations have letters you can sign and send. May not agree with what they say, so
All right. Well, I think wasn't the City Club doing something last night or something? They had an event of some kind, webinar, if memory serves.
you can write, I think, for the next 4 days.
Yes. Yes, and the City Club did have a webinar last evening.
Oh, yeah. Both speakers are here. How many customers are we at now? 18.
Nice.
Okay, 1 minute and I'll welcome everybody. Is that
Okay.
okay with you?
Sounds
Yeah.
great.
Okay. Welcome to everyone who's to our October meeting. Of now it's zoning, development, and housing, and a special welcome to Daniel Russo and Stephen Charno, who are here from Douglas Development. And before we go ahead, we're going to ask Kevin Wu to explain how you play the game.
Welcome, everyone. If this is your first time joining us virtually, you will notice that you are currently muted, and everyone will remain muted throughout the meeting except for Ed, Anthony, and Elizabeth, and any presenters as we move through the agenda. As we move through the agenda, the co-chairs will call on members of the public wishing to speak. You can participate by going to React icon on your device and pressing the raise hand button, not the wave or thumbs up, as those will disappear. Only press it once. If you press it a second time, your hand will go back down. If you're calling in on the phone, it is *9 to raise hand and *6 to unmute. Be on the lookout for a prompt asking you to confirm unmuting once the co-chairs call on you. The chat is available for technical support only to help with Zoom software problems, not to ask questions of the co-chairs. They will not see the chats. If you're using an older version of Zoom, you will need to go to the participants section, where you will find the raise hand feature there. Please do not raise your actual hand or wave at the screen because we may not be able to see you. Chat me, I'm here for support. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Over to you, Anthony.
Okay. I guess we should, hopefully you all want to do a screen share to talk about the project. And I don't know who wants to speak first.
Hi, it's Stephen Charno, president of Douglas
Yes.
Development. How are you?
Fine.
Thank you very much for having us. I got a little nervous because I wasn't able to unmute my my microphone before you gave the direction, and I was frantically trying to figure out what was wrong with my settings. Anyway, we had I know that Liz Oakley had sent over a little narrative about what we're talking about tonight. we recently acquired a site in your community board that is a 50-unit multifamily rental project at 170 East 83rd Street. And we are very excited because we're working with HPD to have it accepted into the voluntary inclusionary housing preservation program to create 50 units of permanently affordable housing. And I will have Danny, Danny Russo, who's our project manager, give you kind of the details of the project. But before that, do you guys need any background about who we are, about Douglas and development? Would that be helpful?
That would be very helpful.
That'd be
Thank you.
Sure. So again, thank you so much for making time for us. Jeff Levine, who's our chairman, he started our company more than 35 years ago. We are owner builders, so we develop and build for our own account. We really do exclusively multifamily housing in New York City. And the majority of it is rental housing. Over the past 25 years or so, we've really created thousands of units of affordable housing, as well as market rate housing in the city. And it's really the main thing that it's the main thing that we do. We as I said, we develop with our own equity, build for our own account, and also manage a lot of our properties, all what we like residential projects in New York, in the 5 boroughs that we're very proud of. So that's really our main focus is here in New York City.
Can I ask real quick, any one borough more than the other, or spread pretty even across all 5 boroughs?
We have done, it's funny, we're from Queens originally, so we haven't done as much in Queens as I have thought we would. A lot of our affordable housing is now in the Bronx. We were at the forefront of rezoning the Williamsburg waterfront. So we've done a lot of those buildings and been very active there. And we've also been very active in Manhattan. We've done multiple projects on the far west side and in Chelsea. Most recent project we finished was a 1 million square foot rental near Hudson Yards that provides it's over 900 units, and 250 of them are permanently affordable at the lowest AMI levels. So I think really right now we're most active in, and we've done a little bit in Staten Island, but we've been most active in Manhattan, Brooklyn, and the Bronx.
Thanks.
Sure.
Is it, I'm sorry, just one more question
Oh, please.
that Ed's kind of inspired. Is this your first project in Community District 8?
This is our first project in Community Board 8, yes. It's not easy. It is a very hard part of town to find projects in, and we're thrilled for the opportunity.
Yes. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you.
All right, so I'll take it away with some specifics about what we're doing at 170 East 83rd. So I'm sure this won't be new information to the folks who are right here, but it's on the corner of East 83rd and 3rd Avenue, southwest corner. What we've done recently is acquire this, kind of echoing Stephen's earlier comment, 50-unit occupied building. And over the past few months, we've been working with HPD to apply for the voluntary inclusionary housing program, through which we're going to commit to providing permanently affordable housing for 100% of the units within this building, at or below 80% of area median income. An offering of 80% AMI within this neighborhood is a rarity, if not non-existent. And it's what we're excited about, and comes with our longstanding position as housers, is just the opportunity that this offers for folks who otherwise would not be able to live in such an amenity-rich, high-opportunity area. In tandem with our voluntary inclusionary housing application, we're also working with HPD to request an Article 11 tax benefit. Through that, we're going to be able to stabilize property operations without any detriment to the services that the existing tenants are used to receiving from property management. So kind of with these two tools, working with HPD, we can go ahead and provide a property that's going to be sustainable for the long term, offer solid affordability that's not typical of the broader community board or neighborhood, and really give folks a chance to access such a beautiful neighborhood. On top of that, we have our work that we're doing kind of in the regulatory realm. We also have work that we're doing physically, tangibly within the building to provide some immediate upgrades. Kind of at like the superficial level, we're refinishing the lobbies, making the resident experience upon entry a bit better, going ahead and installing new bike rooms, new laundry rooms that are accessible, functional, and modern. And then in kind of like the nuts and bolts sense, we're going through building systems. We're making sure that electrical services are up to modern code, replacing in-unit electrical panels with something that's a little bit higher capacity and is fully compliant with building code, replacing gas ranges with new electric ovens. So we're more aligned with kind of city sustainability goals and long-term sustainability goals from an environmental perspective. And kind of just looking to take this 50-unit building, bring it into a state of excellent repair, offer quality housing at a level that's affordable and gives folks access to the Upper East Side. Kind of a timing aspect of this, we're working with HPD. We've been talking to them for the past few months and working through these two agreements, and we expect to enter regulatory agreements, both the Article 11 and the voluntary inclusionary housing, towards the end of this year, probably mid to late December. And that's pretty much the long and short of it.
You know, to
Go ahead, Sue.
a couple things to Danny's point. One is we've also been already spoken to Councilman Powers about this, who is supportive of the project. And also one thing not to gloss over it. I mean, we came in and we bought the asset and we realized that the electrical panels were not adequate. The electrical service to the apartments was not adequate. So we are going through and we are replacing, in all 50 units, we will be replacing every single electrical panel because it just was not it was not up to our standards, and it needed to be done. And that's something that in addition to the other work that Danny mentioned, something that we're very proud of. And we have put in our request to DHCR also in accordance with what we know the direction the city's headed in, to convert the gas ranges to modern electrical ranges, and we've already acquired those. So in the ordinary course, as we finish the upgrades, we'll be able to start doing that work as well. So all of this work is work we're committed to, and that's well underway. And the other point, that the work, the bike room, the laundry room, the lobby upgrades, all of that has already been done. So there's really not an issue with our ability to kind of execute all of the work that HPD would like to see undertaken in connection with this preservation development.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
I think I have a couple of questions, while hopefully others, if there are members of the public who would like to weigh in, they should queue up now, maybe. But before they do, this building, I admit I looked at it on Street Easy today, so I have no idea if any of this information is accurate. This was built around 1960.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it also says it's 6 stories high.
Yes.
Which Marco is nodding vigorously, so it must be true. I did have a question, though. You say there are 50 units, and what I was sort of wondering about as as people begin to raise their hands, good. One of the things I was wondering about, just sort of thinking about it, is that how do you deal with the people who are already in the building who may or may not qualify for as, in other words, what happens to the people who live there now?
Right. So HPD runs the process for all projects like this, and they'll set up a lottery that will govern how folks can income qualify going forward. What we think will happen is everyone's lease will become rent stabilized. So right there, you'll get all the protections of rent stabilization in New York City, and you can stay subject to guidelines as long as you want to stay. No one is going to be asked to leave, and you can stay at the rent you're at subject to guidelines. And it's as fair a way, I think, as you can do it to allow people to stay as long as they want, afforded the protections of rent stabilization. And then when folks leave, the unit will be subject to a lottery process that will be run by HPD and through, we'll have to have a nonprofit partner administer it, which will be Settlement Housing, which is part of just what we're used to doing on our affordable projects to make sure that everything is run fairly in terms of how folks have an opportunity to get an affordable unit in this building.
Okay, great, thank you. And since we have people lined up, let's start with Elaine Walsh.
Thank you. Couple of questions, but also a clarification. The address is 107 East 83rd Street.
170 East 83rd Street.
Oh, it's 170. Okay, everything's coming up 107. Okay, that's our problem. And right now, so that is on the southwest corner, almost up a little bit. How many?
So it's on the corner.
It's right on the corner?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, where there were different stores. Okay. How many of the units are currently occupied?
Of the 50 units, 47 of them are currently occupied.
And in your speaking, they will be able to stay.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so there will be no evictions, no.
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay, and they will stay at their current rent. And I would.
Subject to guidelines, right? Like
No.
any rent stabilized lease in the city.
But are they all rent stabilized now, or
No, they're not all rent stabilized now, but we believe that HPD, let's say half of them approximately are free market, but we believe HPD will want all of those leases stabilized. So if that's what they want, that's what we'll do. But no one, I can tell you that no one will be asked to leave. That's just not part of the plan. HPD has never asked. It's not our plan in any way.
Okay, thank you. And are they currently aware of what's going on?
We do not know for certain that HPD we will be able to go forward with this. So I don't know to what extent tenants are formally aware of what's going on.
But do they know that you're taking over the building?
Oh, yes, they know that we own the building. They know that we've already started doing, we've been doing physical work in the building to upgrade systems, and they are aware that we intend to switch over the ranges. So most importantly, we communicate with the tenants on a daily basis regarding the upgrade work that we're doing, which is difficult for some folks because it's hard for folks to understand that we need to come in their apartments and do some of those upgrades.
Right. And
Just to piggyback, sorry, Elaine. Just to piggyback on Stephen's point too, as part of the Article 11 program with HPD, you distribute surveys to folks to see if they want in-unit work to help them age within their apartment. So you can get some accessibility upgrades within your kitchen and within your bathroom. And we distributed those to every resident. So folks folks have an inkling, so long as they check their mail, that we are in conversations with HPD.
That is true, but the form's maybe a little confusing. So I think people understand that we're doing something with HPD, but our thinking was until we really know that we have the approval we need to move forward, that we were just trying to be prudent about what we communicated to tenants.
Okay, so you talk about rent stabilized, but you're also doing a lot of capital improvements in the apartments or improvements. Will you then add on to the rents, those costs?
No,
Mm-mm.
Great, okay. And as far as the ADA accessibility for apartments, you know that if a tenant asks for it, the owner has to upgrade the apartment. So
yes, we
great
do.
that you're being proactive about it.
Yep.
Do you know how many seniors are in there or disabled people?
I don't know specifically, but there are certainly a handful of seniors in the building.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay, we have another member of the public, Denise Jekyll.
Back row.
I get that?
Thank you. I live in the area. I am attempting to be as respectful as possible. I don't like what I'm hearing. The one thing I heard was one of the gentlemen said that they believe that they would be working with HPD and that I could be mistaken, but doesn't sound like any contracts are in place. The question was asked if the residents were aware. I didn't like the answer. It sounds like all the residents in that building are not aware. It sounds like they're going in and they're fixing the electrical panels, but it doesn't sound like there's full transparency in why they're fixing the electrical panels.
The electrical panels are being fixed because the electrical service first and foremost is not adequate for the building. That is why the electrical panels are
So respectfully, I understand that, but it sounds like the residents are not fully aware of why you're taking an interest in upgrading the electrical panels. It doesn't sound like there's full transparency. It doesn't sound like there's full transparency with the different administrations involved. Someone asked if they were going to be evicted. I've seen buildings come up. I've seen buildings gone down. I've seen people
Yeah.
evicted.
right.
I
So
get what you're up to doing,
so
but I don't want to hear that anyone's being evicted from their building so that a larger building could go up so that more money can be made.
1,000%. So that's why the real answer to the question, right? And I could certainly be more clear about it. By stabilizing everyone's lease, there is no ability to evict tenants, and we're not in the business reputationally of doing that anyway. Everyone is, you're by law, you have to give folks rent stabilized leases. You have to give them, you have to offer them renewal subject to guidelines. The only thing I was trying to say, and the amount of work that Danny and our team has done with HPD and with the agencies, because tenants in place will get the physical benefit of upgrades regardless, because tenants will have rent stabilized leases and no one will be evicted. And because tenants in place will continue to pay the rents they're paying and may or may not qualify for affordability when if they decide to leave, they would have to get into the lottery program. What we've communicated to the tenants is what we feel was appropriate in light of where we are in the process. We have a full commitment from HPD. We are working on negotiating the restrictive declaration. This is something that is thought. The thinking is that it would do nothing but benefit this neighborhood by creating 50 units of permanently affordable housing when the folks that are in the building choose to leave on their own volition. And I don't think there is really much else going on besides that.
I'd like to hear that everyone is aware of what's going on within the building, because I heard something about, well, we're not really sure if we have a contract yet. It sounds like contracts aren't in place, that there are a lot of moving pieces, which I understand from being a homeowner. but it doesn't, I'm not hearing full transparency.
Right. You know, one of the steps, Denise, one of the steps in the process before we can sign with HPD is coming and speaking to you guys, right? It's part of a process. So the process is fully in motion, but that is part of the process. And that's why we're here tonight. But you know, there isn't any, there's no piece of this where there's not real certainty that you know, everyone, the agencies think this makes total sense, and so do we. So
when you talk about affordable housing, what is the benchmark for the lowest rent cost in affordable housing?
right, Danny, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, sure. Within this project and within the parameters of the voluntary inclusionary housing program with HPD, that is set at 80% of area median income. And I'll just note that neighborhood rents within the Upper East Side are typically well in excess of 80% AMI. So it's really our angle is not at all to have people who are occupying this building have their rent increased or be evicted. It's the exact opposite. It's to have folks who are currently occupying the building to continue occupying the building. And when as Stephen said, when they do choose to leave because they want to move on somewhere else, give another family individual the opportunity to live in the neighborhood.
Yeah, and I do want to apologize. I really thought the most respectful thing that it would be presumptuous to come here tonight and say, this is all fully baked and done, and was just trying to communicate that where exactly we are in the process. But I can tell you what is done, and that is that the money that needed to be spent and the work that needed to be done to do the right upgrades for this building are already well underway, and many of them are already done. So that's I think the most important thing as it relates to the current residents of this building.
Great. Thank you. And thank you, Denise.
Rob, could you guys remind everyone on the call what the dollar amount is for the 80%, just so they know that is?
Let me I can pull it up. One second. Yeah, absolutely. Dollar amount for an 80% AMI unit. Okay, so by unit size, for a studio, that is $1,864. For a one bedroom, that is $2,331. For a two bedroom, it is $2,796. And for a three bedroom, it is $3,231.
And these are large apartments, so you know you could be talking about easily at market a $4,500 one bedroom versus, you know, what was the cost again for a one bed?
One bed is $2,331.
Right.
And what is the income for the 80%? Just as a quick aside.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's by household size, but for example, for a family of three, the income is $111,816.
Thanks.
That's AMI, right?
That's the household income. So it's like
you so 80% of that.
Family of three.
Yeah, for a family of three. So assuming basically two incomes at $55,000 each.
No, I only ask that because sometimes we talk so much about these percentages. We kind of get lost in what the dollar amount is. That's why I asked.
Yeah, totally agree.
Good point to contextualize it.
Thanks.
Great, thank you. Okay, if there are no other, we'll interrupt if someone else from the public wants to speak. But let's start with Sasha. I think it's the first up. Yes.
All right. Can everyone hear me? Sorry, I'm
Yes.
somewhere noisy. Okay. I think this is a great idea. I used to work in HPD's Article 11 tax abatements, doing these exact preservation deals. So I love to see a building staying and tenants staying. And I can assure everyone, no one can be evicted in doing these. at first when I saw the address of the building, I was a little worried because the building next door has been demolished on the corner of 82nd. And from Google Maps, they almost look conjoined or attached. But then I saw this is a 100% affordable preservation deal. So in fact, this is a different building. Nothing's being demolished here. There is a chance, and I don't know how low people who are currently stabilized, how low their rent currently is, but HPD sometimes does look to do rent resets. That's just a possibility that could come up, but people will not, just to assure people on the board here, people will not be evicted. A regulatory agreement will be in place memorializing it. It's just not policy to do that. I will just ask, in updating the gas ranges, how will people continue to get heat? Will it be gas? Will it be electric? Because electricity is usually passed to the tenant. So now your tenants are no longer getting free gas ranges with their stoves, but will pay electricity on it.
It's a gas boiler, and residents will continue to remain the same. Yes.
Okay, that's good to know. That was really my only question. Love to really see this happening. I wish more, developers and owners just look to preserve buildings and tap into resources at HPD. And again, I've worked on projects like this, so I know what goes into it. Nothing can be finalized until HPD finalizes their restrictive deck, but they will definitely try to get it done by the end of the year, which is the end of the fiscal year. So, I really just say hats off. I'm glad to see this happen in the area and that it will remain affordable here.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Means a
Thank
lot.
you, Sasha. And next we have Michelle Birnbaum.
Thank you. Yeah. I wanted to follow up. My question was about electricity also. Sasha asked a question because electricity and the cost of electricity is a big concern. It's very, very, very costly. And it's shocking to me that there's a big push for electrical conversion, because you're turning something inexpensive into something very, very costly. So a couple of questions. When you say that the electricity that's already in the building is not adequate for it, does that mean you're drawing additional amperage from the street into the building, or
No,
you just...
it was a problem. It was a problem with the existing electrical panels that they needed to be replaced.
Okay, so you're not increasing the amperage to the building.
No.
You're upgrading the panels so that they can handle what's already there. And that was my question, is now that you're going to have electrical stoves, who pays that electric bill? Is that going to be on the household's electric bill? Individual households?
Danny, how are we working that?
Yeah, the electricity is paid by the tenant, but then they receive a credit against their rent. So the rentals, the monthly rates that I rattled off before receive a deduction against them for the anticipated monthly cost of the electrical load for that electrical stove that wasn't previously there and on their bill.
Right. So Michelle, before, if it was a gas range, which you're right, the city definitely does not want those anymore. They want to switch over. Where the tenants were getting the gas at no charge to run their range, now it will be electric, but they will be getting a credit towards their rent that will cover the cost of the range.
Okay. And this affordability is in perpetuity?
Permanent,
Yes, it
yes.
is.
So if somebody leaves, that apartment does not become market value, it stays the way it is?
Absolutely not. All 50 units all of the units will be permanently affordable.
But are these tenants signing leases?
Yes, they will.
So what are they, 1, 2, 3-year leases, or?
So there'll be options of 1 or 2 year leases. You mean that when the tenants come in?
Correct.
there'll be rent stabilized leases at the AMI level, and they will have the choice of what lease they, what term lease they sign.
So
And they
are their incomes being reviewed every time the lease comes up to determine that they remain within the financial parameters that are permissible for this building? In other words, if you come in and you qualify as a new person, you qualify, your lease is for 3 years, but now your income has gone up significantly. Are you reviewing that income before you renew that lease?
It's on intake, and depending on your view of it's on intake. It's upon your initial application to come in, right? So HPT will run. Stephen was referencing this before. They'll run the lottery. They'll select tenants who are qualified based on their annual income and place them into units. But if folks find opportunity within the neighborhood, get a better job, have their income grow, they're not evicted from the building subsequently.
Yeah. And that's how it works at all of our affordable.
Yeah, well, actually, it's a nicety for sure that people don't have to be disrupted and all that, or punished for doing better. So that makes perfect sense. But the flip side of that is that the affordability, they're actually end up taking an apartment, which down the line, they may really not be qualified for, and therefore denying someone else the opportunity to have that apartment for which they would be qualified for. So that was always a question of mine. And that's one of the big, I don't know if you want to call it a fallacy, but it's certainly one of the big issues in these kinds of programs. And that's how you get people in rent stabilized apartments who went into them when they were 20 or 30 and making one salary, and now they're age 50 and they are a major in a corporation. So I mean, I don't know how I don't know what the best way is to do that. I know in certain housing situations like a Mitchell-Lama, they in fact do review income every time a lease is up.
Right.
So if you really want to keep it affordable in the terms, the definition that you provided, I think you really have to do that.
Yeah, we'd be happy to raise it with we'll certainly pass your comment on to HPD when we speak to them.
Yeah,
next.
I mean, it makes some people happy and some people very unhappy. So I don't know. I don't know about it. The next question and my last, what is it that you want from us tonight?
We just want to make you aware of the project that we are excited to do within your neighborhood. We want to make sure that people aren't vehemently against it and understand if there's any concerns that folks have about the project that we're presenting.
So
I want to add on
an
one thing to your previous. Yeah. I want to add on one thing to your previous one too, is I grapple with that policy question all the time. And one thing to your point about 20 some odd year olds coming in, making low salaries and growing into massive salaries, we are working with settlement housing funds, like Stephen said earlier, who will be vetting applicants, because it's really not the intended audience for rent stabilized affordable apartments.
What is not the intended audience?
Like a fresh college graduate who wants an apartment and then will stay there and be a high earner. Yeah.
More family oriented.
Exactly.
Someone in a midlife or a life position that they will probably stay in. That would be your aim. But you have no way, or you haven't instituted a way of monitoring that. But I understand that's your aim. I understand it's a complicated and difficult question. And I understand that people are on both sides of this issue. But when we're looking for, in quote, affordability, that always comes to mind. And okay, interesting about the electricity, because I know for me, electricity cost is a nightmare.
Yeah,
I'm sure for most.
Everything's expensive, right? So I hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Michelle. Michelle inspired me to ask yet another question. The does the building currently have only a single gas meter or are apartments individually metered as it's set up now?
It only has
I'm
a
just
single,
curious.
right now it has a single gas meter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that covers the boiler and all of the gas stoves.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Elizabeth Rose.
So Valerie wanted to say something after this
Oh,
first set of
okay.
speakers.
Sorry, I apologize. I'm in hour, I don't know, 13 of waiting to speak at the Coiho hearing, so I don't want to lose my spot. But I just wanted to say
Good.
that I wanted to thank Douglaston Development for coming in. They sent us this project on Thursday, and quickly upon, Elizabeth and Anthony and Ed saying, yeah, we want to see them, came in to be as transparent as possible as to where they were in the process. I quite frankly was very excited to know that there was some kind of affordable project coming our way. And so I'm happy to have you here, and the sooner we get the information, the better. But I just wanted to say, I mean, with all due respect to Douglaston, I know you're not doing this out of the goodness of your heart. So you must be having some profitability in doing this, despite the fact that you're in a rent regulated or whatever kind of environment. So how does that work? Why does one developer decide that they can, in our neighborhood, decide that they can do 100% voluntary inclusionary housing, and while we've got to whip other developers multiple times and mostly start hitting our heads against the wall to get other developers to do the same? I'm not asking you to malign any of your fellow developers, but I'm just curious as to your model and why it works.
I can't, and again, I can't speak to why other developers do what they do, but there was a good opportunity for us here to do this, and the tax abatement allows it to work. And it's part of, we go in cycles, and when we are, there are times when the market rate is we fill up our market rate pipeline, and then there are times when we really focus on filling up our affordable pipeline, and it's just part of the way we're able to keep our people working and really just keep our people working. And it's good work, and it's reputationally very good as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm just wondering, was this more general? I don't know how long you've been talking to our council member Powers or whatever, but was this precipitated by the passage of 485X, or was this already in your pipeline before that happened?
It was in our pipeline because this will need an Article 11. It doesn't come under 485X.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much. And thank you again for coming out tonight.
Good luck. How's the day going there? It's been a marathon.
Well, it's going slow. And I think overall, nobody likes this Coiho. I can tell you that.
Except
for people who want to get rid of parking. They seem to be very vocal.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's hard. That's what I've been hearing throughout the day.
And also, just the other knock on it is it's just more housing. It's not really affordable housing, and that it doesn't really go far enough. That's the other piece of it. So
right.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Sure. No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie.
Anthony, can I jump in? I'm sorry, Elizabeth. I'm sorry, Marco. Just because Valerie asked the question I've been thinking about, but it's a follow up on that. So. For our elected officials out there and just on the public policy, and this is actually something driven by good policy, good tax policy. Can we say that?
Yeah.
Okay. Nice to know. Okay. Good to know. Yay.
And we do a lot with HPD, and they were thrilled when we picked up the phone and suggested it. So it's good.
Okay.
Does this building have parking? Speaking of parking.
Yes. It does.
Good. And you're not getting rid of it?
No.
Thank you.
But none of us could afford to park there, unfortunately. We don't set the prices. There's a parking.
No, I understand that. No one can afford to park their cars, but we have to.
We have no ability to make the parking spaces affordable. I must say. That's a whole other issue.
Exactly. Okay, thank you. All right, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Anthony. I recall reading recently about a developer who purchased the entire block front, an entire block front on Third Avenue, and was basically, one half of it was empty, one half of it was full or almost full, and any tenants that needed to be relocated would be moved into the part that would remain. They were then going to demolish the southern half, keep the northern half. Is that this project?
It is.
Okay.
the
So
only thing
you've
is that,
effectively required it from a partner, another developer who's developing the south side, or you're developing the south side?
we are developing the south side.
Okay, so
I shouldn't say that. I mean, they're two separate tax lots.
yeah,
And the south side had been vacated before we acquired the site in any way.
okay. So thank you. That just sort of places this in my memory bank. So for me, this is not new. I understand it is new to this committee, but I have previously read about this. So thank you for that clarity.
Sure.
The second question, and this is again just now for clarification. You said 47 of the existing apartments in this building are currently occupied. No one will be asked to leave.
No one will be asked to leave. That is correct.
Therefore, let me keep going because I'm just sort of setting out the premises here. Therefore, in the short term, there will be 3 apartments that will be subject to income requirements and administered through, the HPD lottery process and nonprofits. And 47 tenants who will remain at their current rate on rent stabilized leases. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
And it's one of the great things about New York. The ability to have mixed income living in our buildings.
Great. So theoretically, and I don't know what actuarial tables will show, because obviously we have no idea what the rent roll is and what the tenant profile is in this building. Theoretically, 20 years from now, 25 of these apartments could still be at the current rents escalated only by rent stabilization. And 25 could be income restricted, hypothetically.
Yes.
Okay. So I know Article 11 is a 40-year tax abatement.
Mhm.
What happens after the 40-year tax abatement?
We pay taxes.
You pay taxes,
Mhm.
and now let's hope 40 years from now, it's now 95% restricted income at 80% AMI. Is that sort of a reasonable projection?
Yes, and over time, as you contest the taxes, your taxes should fall in line as revenue drops. Taxes should fall in line with, should ultimately be supportable
Mm-hmm.
even down the road.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate the clarity.
Sure.
And obviously, this community board is very in favor of creating affordable income restricted, as well as retaining existing rental housing in the community. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. Marco.
Thank you, Mr. Steven. I think I would appreciate that you're coming to us. And many questions I think Elizabeth Rose raised. And I was thinking in that direction.
Yes.
And my concern is basically, it's true, your intention is to provide affordable housing. But the problem is you have people with a market rate. And those people, the market rate, they're not going to move from there. And so basically, we don't have affordable housing, even though that 80%, Ed asked what it means 80% is a lot of money for that. That's probably middle income families, no low income families. And let me go in another direction before to continue. I checked the certificate of occupancy, and according with that, the latest CO was issued on 1962, and they said 15 apartment per floor, and in the record of the Department of Building, they said 90 dwelling units.
Right. So
There is this big discrepancy.
So that's a great question, and that is correct. But what's happening is we have already filed all of the permits that are needed in order for the C of O to be updated to reflect the 50 units, because as was mentioned before, there had previously been more units. And all of the work that is required to update that C of O for the 50 units is all a condition for finalizing our deal with HPD. But all of the work permits have been filed so that we have a vetted plan with the Department of Buildings to update the certificate of occupancy to reflect exactly the building that we will have with these 50 apartments. That's all something that's been in the works for over a year.
So the question is, now I understand why you update the electricity. Probably you pass inspection, you saw that it's not up to code, and then the intention is probably to move with the direction of the Article 321. And I think most of the elements that you have is the Article 21. The intention is basically to comply with the Climate Mobilization Act or Local Law 87. So these elements basically it help you in that direction, and it helps to comply with this one, because next year you must be in compliance. So while you're doing this process, probably you may have some period of grace, so you can start probably prolong a little bit longer, but you must be compliant. You have to electrify this building. I understand that part. And my concern is everything looks fine. Everything looks perfectly. I mean, I thought it was a very good deal until I was thinking is your current tenants, they are not according with the rent control and the rent stabilization program. So I think Elizabeth make strong points over there, and that's basically my major concern, because yes, you want to do that, but you have the tenants over there. If you have the tenants over there, you cannot force by law to put the people outside, because since they are paying the rent, which is a market rate, no at the rent that you're supposed to charge. So I think that is a big dilemma of this project. And that's made me concerned from my point of view, because everything looks fine, but at the time when Elizabeth, I was planning to go in that direction, but she make the case very nice. And I think that, how do you think that we can work it out, those units, or they never gonna move those people, and you still receive 40 years of the tax breaks? So that has made me concerned.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting, right? There's two real tensions at play, right? There's the tension of creating the affordability, and then there's the tension of not evicting people, right? So we all work within that, with the hand that we're dealt. And I hear you loud and clear. Like I understand, but we will do two things here. We will not evict anyone, and every time a unit turns, we will deliver a unit of affordable housing. And that's the intent of the program, to create affordable housing in the context of a preservation program like this. There can't be a situation where we would ever have the right to evict someone. So that's the tension that we're dealing with, and that we're following the program and moving forward within the parameters of the program.
I understand the part, but I'm still, for instance, let me ask a question. What is the average rent in that building right now? Because if you compare what is with the rent stabilized, probably is much, much higher. And that's, I think, we
What,
have to figure it out.
higher than the free market?
No, higher than the rent stabilized, which is 80% of the AMI. I think
The
that's
current-
probably my
the-
impression.
Yeah,
You
the
tell me
current-
that if I'm wrong.
The current rents being paid are definitely, are much higher than, for the most part, than the, you know, than the 80% AMI. Many of them are.
Stephen, if I could, on average, if you look at the whole rent roll for the building, it's actually below 80% currently because there's a number of stabilized units in it currently. Our plan is to stabilize the balance of the units, those that are achieving much higher than 80%, and bring more affordability to the building.
How many that stabilized do you
Marco,
have?
I totally hear your concern about day one and year 10 affordability within the building, but just want to really hammer home the long-term view here. Like these units are at 80% affordability restricted permanently. That does not go away after 40 years, 50 years, 60 years. It's permanent. So if folks who did nothing wrong but are making higher incomes than would otherwise qualify for this building, they don't get evicted and they stay there for 10 years. It doesn't exactly match intent, but in time, we'll be able to fill this with families who can really benefit from the project.
Yeah, but Marco,
I'm
I
sorry.
thought you were speaking about, so the free market tenants are at a higher rent. And
Right.
they're more, that's
yes.
I thought that was your point, and they're more likely to ultimately leave. Like, and those units will be turned over to affordable units.
Well, probably I can be in disagreement with that part, but let's go figure it out something. Something we have to do to compensate that you are receiving more revenues that you're supposed to have less revenues. I understand very well because you cannot evict nobody as long as pay the rent. And so that's made me consider, what do you think that we can do something to balance that part? I know that you're in the direction to profit. I know very well. But I think you have a pie. The pie I'm asking is probably 1/4 for the community, and 3/4 for you. But something has to be done in that part. With all respect. I mean, I understand. I mean, myself, I do developments too, so I understand how I come in, what is my intentions, and I respect that because you really try to take the advantage with whatever they offer the system. That's perfectly fair. But seeing in the way that I perceive that, I mean, it's something where you can do that. I don't know. I'm going to stop right here. I don't know if you can listen what I'm trying to say to you, but please think carefully in that part. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. Okay, we have Jane Partial.
I just want to commend Elizabeth and Marco for bringing these issues to our attention. No question, the developer is here to try to establish some goodwill with all of us, but no question, he's also taking advantage of this program that will only serve to his advantage. And my initial instinct, I think, was on the money. I'm a little bit cynical about all this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please, Ed.
So I was curious, and listening to Elizabeth Rose, and kind of building on what Valerie started to ask, which is my question all along for years is it's always been how you're able to do this, and without giving away your secret as to how you make money, is I'm sitting here thinking to myself like what this is great, and so is the way that you're making a buck here is to develop the South. Not that there's anything against that. I'm just trying to figure out, how we get other people to emulate this, and where's the ROI?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a very unique situation, and the South, the development of the South is something that, so it just.
Okay. That's
Yeah,
how.
it all works out in a good.
Okay. It's a benefit. It's the profit you make off that enables you to subsidize what you're doing over here. I mean, without going into, I'm just curious, that's all, because in terms of trying to build, I mean, for myself, I've always, over the years, discovered that it's, it's open land is the big cost. And, up here, land is not cheap. So that's what I was, whatever. Okay. So it's the development, you're going to develop that southern portion of that.
Well, it just allowed us to do something creative on the north half, which
Right.
is why we're here tonight.
Thanks.
So.
Now, is that, by the way, just a quick question. Is that as of right? The one, I guess it's on the avenue is it'll be facing the avenue. So that'll be as of right on the
Yes.
southern. Okay.
Yes.
What's the limit in terms of and you can use the air rights from the other? Okay. Just curious. Okay.
Meaning? Well,
I mean,
go ahead, Ed.
Whatever. I just,
I guess the question, Stephen, is, it's not in, or at least sort of on my part, not intended as a criticism. It's just kind of information. Is the tower is using, as I guess from looking superficially at the zoning diagram, that the tower is going to be using, well, we'll call it the excess floor area from the 83rd Street building to go bigger.
Correct.
Okay, fine. And so then everything else, now it all really makes sense. And not necessarily in a bad way. Is other members of the board, members of the public? All right, Marco, go ahead.
No, talking about the development in the other corner. What is the density that you are planning to have?
The density will be approximately the same as the building that's catty corner across the street.
Yes, I think if I'm not wrong, I think it's 30 or 40%.
I don't follow.
Approximately, yes, because I did a study of that building.
Yeah, it'd be approximately, it's a 30-story tower.
Yeah, I know that. I know very well. The only situation is the density. The density, basically, if you produce just only 30% or 40% of the density, that means you are telling us that the building will have luxury house. 1, 2, how is gonna be the tower? Because since it's not protected area, you can go as much higher as you can. What will the plan, your ideas that you're planning to do that tower on the corner, in that corner?
Yeah, no, there's a height limitation there. All of the bulk is set and all as of right.
I know that the bulk is as of right, and the bulk doesn't have no limits because as long as you have enough floor area, you can keep going up, and up.
Right.
And you have an idea what is the height of the floors in each for this building, more or less?
11 feet, call it.
11 feet. So then you can put another program that the city planning create, which is RON, and every 75 feet you have the right to put mechanicals 20 feet. Are you planning to use that plan? That's maybe your idea.
I don't fully follow. We do have 2 mechanical floors.
Okay. So you are not planning to create the mechanical floors every 75 feet because the zoning resolution allows to do that, which is wrong.
We're not. Yeah, it gets very expensive. We're not planning to do that.
Okay, so the only situation is, my concern is, look, I'm not against that you develop luxury housing. That's perfectly fine, and that's where you make money. That's fine, but to have a combination, probably middle income in that tower, that will be great. Which basically you have to increase the density, but your intentions probably is not. So you follow the model across the street building. And I think one of the issues that I had to tell you is our community, we have a strong position, or we have a position that the maximum building height should be to 10. That is our position. But obviously, is nothing under the law. But
Right.
210 is what we require. But since you have the air rights, the OW, and then you have the mandatory air rights, the mandatory bonus, you increase, and the tower's gonna be very tall. Probably, if I'm not wrong, with all respect, we will be as much higher as the building across the street. Well, okay. The only thing I'm gonna say, thank you. I will appreciate that you answered the questions. And thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Stephen, just one little tiny follow-up from what Marco was asking. I mean, I looked at the zoning diagram, so I know how tall the building's going to be. How many units is it going to have? Do you know that? Yeah,
75.
75. Oh, okay. Wow. If we look at the 50 units on 83rd Street and then the 75 units on 82nd Street, that's 125 units, 50 of which will be affordable to 80% AMI, and that's pretty good. And if it takes a few years to get there, that's just part of the way that things happen. So I want to thank you. If there's Ed, Elizabeth, do either of you have anything else here?
One of the things that following the conversation about people living there for 40 years, I think that there is some policy that should be developed to deal with that, in that one doesn't want somebody perfectly happy is not being somebody cheating the system or anything like that just by living there and getting more money. But I think that perhaps there is a way of, once one no longer qualifies for the affordable housing, perhaps one comes under another formula, and the extra money that this person is required to pay goes into the system that supports affordable housing. The money that supports this program, and I think that there must be a solution to that, and because one, as people said, you don't want to throw them out, but you do need affordable housing, so that some formula to deal with that problem should be developed.
Yeah.
And I also think as we go forward and dissolve what we have learned today, which is, to me, was quite a lot, we may learn how to incentivize affordable housing. What makes, because nobody goes into business to lose money, and what attracts, what incentivizes building affordable housing, which I would imagine from what I see, and I live in a co-op and I know what my maintenance is, and it certainly wouldn't cover an affordable apartment, affordable housing. But so there is things obviously that incentivize this, and we may learn things from that.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Ed?
Thank you.
No, yeah, that's it. I thank you all for coming, and this was very informative. Look forward to learning more, seeing more what's going on there. Someone had texted me I think they said it might be what, 39 stories or something along those lines. So anyway, like I said, appreciate you all coming. A quick plug for next month. We might we're hoping to discuss the new housing plan that's in front of Congress and some other things. Although I see all these hands going up, so maybe instead of talking about what's going on next month, I see a flurry of activity. So I guess we turn it over not to turn it over to.
Michelle?
Oh, I was going to move to adjourn, but I'll wait to hear your announcements, Ed, if you.
Would you like us to sign off, Ed?
No,
Dave,
No, that's fine. You're fine.
I wasn't sure. I didn't know if there were all a bunch of questions and things. That was all. But again, the announcements.
No.
Anyway, we're looking to have a good meeting next month, and hopefully having George Janes and again discussing. We don't want to jinx anything. We haven't nailed anything down, but hoping to have a good discussion again about housing and zoning and for next month as well. So anyway.
Thank you.
Thank
So,
Thank you very much.
So Michelle was, thank you. So Michelle was,
Sign off.
moved to adjourn, I believe. She nods. No, Elizabeth wants to say something.
I see Jane waving.
All right, go ahead, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Anthony. I just wanted to raise two possible topics of new business.
Oh.
First being one that I have emailed you and Elizabeth and I think Ed about, which is the currently vacant lot on East 73rd Street between York and the river that was supposed to be the Hunter College School of Nursing. And is now being transferred to the New York EDC to sell. And I personally, and I think there are others who agree with me, would like to see the community board reach out to the EDC proactively to lobby for this site to either take over one of the two hospital projects that are in discussion or become housing and have a high percentage of affordable housing because these are city/state owned property. And as we all know, the most difficult aspect of developing affordable housing is the cost of the land. So here we have a very large parcel. It is already zoned for an R10 equivalent building. This should be a big residential project with a high percentage of affordability. And if we are not proactive as a community board, this is an opportunity that could literally just slip through our fingers because the EDC could just sell it to whomever they want to sell it to. So that is item of new business number one that I would like to see these two committees either separately or together take on. The second is there have been a flurry of emails about the blood center and the lack of action on that site. There is a letter of understanding that exists that says if this project is not developed with the blood center as the primary, ground and whatever percentage tenant, that this site reverts or would go through a process to revert to R8B. And again, it has now been 3 years since that project passed city council. It was approved. Nothing has happened. The blood center has rented a large amount of space in Westchester and moved presumably large amounts of staff to Westchester. So again, I would like to see us be proactive on pursuing this as return to R8B and hope that it can become a residential site. Those are my two proposals for new business.
Great, thank you.
Can I say, Elizabeth, you heard me at the other meeting when you brought this up. I think there are a few people on this call, I know I am, on that site at 73rd. Quite the Donnybrook at the community board years ago, and litigation on that site when it was originally even bigger and was a much larger parcel. I won't go into the history of it, but interesting that yet again it's back in front of us all. Anyway, sorry.
Okay.
Marco?
Thank you. I was going to ask the developer, this is actually the checking very quick in the system. This is a split lot, the corner lot. I would like to see. The question was, how are you going to deal that part? Are you going to develop or going to go for a variance for something? That's means while I was speaking, I was checked right away in the Department of City Planning. So, but the question is about the MSK. The MSK basically, I think, is a very good point. I think I agree. It has to be proactive. And one of the issues is myself is I prefer personally that we are the densest community board in the country that with 110,000 people per square mile. No other community board has that number. So basically, in some way, we has been collaborating in production of housing. What we are large deficit in our community is open spaces. As a proof of that, in COVID period, there was the parks was not enough, and they had to close East End Avenue and other streets, proving that we need open spaces. So, but again, that will be a topic for discussion, and that will be in that direction. With respect with the second topic that Elizabeth raised is the blood center. Look, these guys, they are very smart. I don't know how effective will be because they reach the point to have a restrictive declaration in the system. So you cannot change unless the owner will have the willingness to change that part. And I don't think the blood center is gonna change, but to fight is nothing wrong. To go in that direction to think that we may gonna get RAB, I don't think we're gonna get back because they are very smart. They do everything by the books to protect the resolution that was granted from the city planning, from the city council. And I think that that will be hard, but I'm ready to discuss that project. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Marco. Jane Partial, and then we'll go to Elaine.
Not to delay our people who want to adjourn, I just wanted all of you to know that right at the corner of 71st Street and 2nd Avenue, the southeast corner, a huge development is going up, and we're losing on that corner about 50 units of affordable housing. Thank you. And frankly, I wanted to make a comment after the developer from Douglaston left, because the amount of affordable housing we're going to see in the near term from East 83rd Street is practically zero. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Jane. Elaine.
Just a quickie, since I was involved with both of those projects that Elizabeth raised. On the blood center, I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, but I was very forceful because of past experience to ensure that there would be a return to the old zoning for the blood center if the blood center did not move forward. So maybe we need to, I would suggest that you get either city planning or some group in who can tell us what is going on, or the land use committee chair of city council, to get them to understand what our dilemma is. On the 73rd Street site, I was, as you know, restricted from involvement illegally because I was not an employee of that dormitory construction. There is on that site an issue that whoever built there had to guarantee the sanitation garage down on 25th Street. I've not seen that. So there is some fuzziness going on But I totally agree with Elizabeth. That property that Hunter will not be using because they're going to have the nursing school back where it was, has to have affordable housing. And on the bottom, I think you can do open space. So you could have a park, you know, instead of having retail there, you can have a park and then above it, a house. And I would ask that EDC and whoever else in the city is involved in this be asked to attend a meeting. And I would ask your committee to prepare questions to hold them accountable and embarrass the mayor and everyone else through media if they let this go to some wealthy developer like they always do, because that's what's happened to us in the past. And then the city says, or certain people like the current mayor, oh, there's no affordability in our neighborhood. There's no affordability because the deals were done that when developers had to put affordable in, they cut a deal to go across the river to the other boroughs, and the other boroughs have our affordability. And this went on for 25, 30 years. So we need to say enough is enough. So please, if you can get those people in, it would be, or embarrass them and start a media campaign, which isn't a bad idea. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Elaine. Marco.
Can I put a motion to adjourn?
I see some seconds.
It's up to you, basically.
There is.
I see
Abby.
Peggy and Michelle. And so we will adjourn in world record time.
Anthony, there's one
7.
more person with their hand raised. I think they're from the
okay.
public.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Abby.
Hi. So I moved to CB8 a couple of years ago, so I don't understand the history with the blood center. But I actually live just a couple of doors down. So I was wondering if very briefly somebody could fill me in on what's being, just a couple sentences, what's going on and what has happened in the past.
Sure. Okay. Before the pandemic, so this is going like way back, the blood center the New York Blood Center made a deal with a medical research developer from Boston, Longfellow Properties, to build a building much larger than the existing blood center building, which was originally built as a vocational school. The blood center, the initial proposal was for a building about 350 feet tall. They cut it down somewhat to 2 something, but certainly much in excess of what the zoning permits. And it was against the vote of our city councilman. It was approved as one of, I guess, 3, it was 2021, right? Yeah, it was 2021, so it was right at the end of the, before before Adams became mayor. And basically, the idea was that the blood center would occupy the same amount of space, basically, that they had before, and on top of it would be this kind of medical research laboratory that would just sort of be a 24/7, 365 kind of bright object in the mid-block. And it was I guess I said it was opposed violently, but then there were lots of people who were very much in favor of the project. Maybe not necessarily for, well, I won't say. But at any rate, since then, as Elizabeth pointed out, nothing has happened. The building is just sitting there. I believe they're still physically in it. They've moved a lot of people out of it to this building in Westchester. I can't remember what it was previously. At Avon, wasn't it? Something like that. Anyway, it was an office building in Westchester. And we don't know what's going to happen. I think that's a fair assessment. And it would be good if we could get somebody the last time we asked formally, the people from the blood center said, oh no, absolutely, of course, we're going right ahead. No, this is nonsense. But we don't know if that in fact is actually the case.
And their justification was destroyed. The tower would be a commercial tower, and they needed the money, and then all of a sudden they've got the money to have this huge property in Westchester. So the justification vanished, and it never sounded all that good anyway. But and the community board very strongly opposed it.
Yes. Does that help answer your question? You disappeared. Okay. So I think we can proceed with the
Adjournment?
adjournment. That's the right word, Ed.
Yes.
Okay.
Michelle.
Okay.
Are you seconding?
Yeah, I proposed it. I seconded it 3 times. I did everything I could. I just want
And
to
we
offer,
appreciate it.
and I appreciate it. I just want you to offer to this young woman that Valerie, who was one of the leaders in opposition
Yes.
to the development of the blood center, is also an attorney. And so she may be able to clarify on the question about whether or not it reverts to the previous zoning. My recollection is that it does not, but I certainly could be wrong. So
No,
anyway,
I think it does. I mean, Elizabeth.
I think it does.
you
it
think
does.
it does?
Yeah.
That it reverts to the R8B?
Yes.
Well, that's the good news for tonight. Let's end on that.
Great. Okay.